David.
Yep.
This is Don.
Yep. And
With
David's,
a foundation.
and David's in up.
Professor David is being a whiny baby. He's got sniffles and doesn't feel good, so he's staying at home. And if he's really sick, he needs to stay there till he's well.
Professor Sniffles.
Professor Sniffles is at home, and Professor Sniffles, if I know you'll be watching this, if you're not watching it live, you stay home till you're well. I don't want your disease. Thank you very much. I promise not to bring you mine if I know about it. I ask you not to bring me yours.
Yep. So, Don.
Yes.
Where does the New Testament actually start? Because we know that the Bible has two sections to it.
Yeah.
The Old Testament and the New Testament. Go ahead.
Now, so you got this division of Old Testament, which is basically the history of the Jewish people.
Yes.
And the God that they serve. And the New Testament starts when that's over. However, the New Testament has divisions. Okay? It starts with the gospel, which is Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. That is the recorded history and story of Jesus Christ walking on this earth and creating this thing that we now call Christianity.
Yeah.
By his personal testimony and his walk on this earth. In Acts, at the end of the Gospels, Jesus dies a cruel death on a cross. 3 days later, we just celebrated this on Easter. Mm-hmm. He rose from the grave. He walked again.
You know, Don, why did you have to bring up Easter? You know, I woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning, Sunday morning.
Yeah.
I walked the entire yard. I did not find one dead blasted egg.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, no Easter eggs. So, in Acts, after Jesus is gone and he sends the Holy Spirit back, the Spirit of God, the essence of God.
But the question is, where in Acts? Is
Okay.
it chapter 1 or 2? I know it's 1, 2, or 3, but where does it actually
I
start?
simply call it Acts. I believe it begins in Acts. Okay?
Oh, okay, well, yeah,
As a book.
that makes sense. Okay,
Because
yeah.
it's really hard if you're going to break it down to the middle of a book of the Bible. Now, I want everybody out there to understand this little bit about the Bible. The Bible is divided into chapters and verses for references so we can keep up with each other. Most of the New Testament, the biggest part of the New Testament, are letters written by the apostles, including the Apostle Paul, to different churches because they had this brand new thing called Christianity. Mm-hmm. And in individual towns, they had this brand new thing that these people following Christ and believing Jesus as the Messiah formed churches. It's the church age.
Yep.
And they didn't know how to do it. They had no clue. They believed, they accepted that Jesus was the Son of the living God, died and rose again. That's the essence of Christianity. Yep. But how to do church was way new to them. And these are instructional letters to the Christians in Corinth, and the Christians here, and the Christians there. Some of the books, like Peter and James, are general stories, letters. Peter, which I'm studying on Sunday mornings, we're in 1 Peter now, were letters to the Jewish people, explaining how their very strict religion and rule-based religion is, how do they translate it into Christianity? How do they stop doing the rule thing and start doing the living for Christ thing? They didn't know how. So these are just letters combined, but they were broken down into chapters and verses so we can discuss it together. And with that in mind, tonight we're going to look at, we're in the Gospels. We're in the Gospels, not in the New Testament yet. It's in the New Testament, not in the church age.
Right.
This is the Jesus age. Matthew 15, Jesus feeding 4,000 people. All right. Let's take a major sporting event today. Some people out there, probably everybody out there, has been to some kind of sporting event, college, pro, something.
At least high school.
Okay. And many high schools will have more than 4,000 people show up for a big championship game.
Yeah.
Okay. Even small high schools that get to go to a championship game are going to have thousands of people there. And they got concession stands. They got vendors. And they've had no problem feeding those people. However, when this event occurred, it was a little different than that. This is Jesus, and he's out with some people. I believe he was near the Sea of Galilee.
Well, if you remember the feeding of the 5,000, he was just out. He wanted to get away.
Yeah.
He wanted to go get on the boat and leave and get away. That's
so I think he's a little bit south of Capernaum, along the Sea of Galilee.
Yeah.
And everywhere he goes, people want to be taught. They want to hear what this guy's got to say, because his fame is growing and spreading throughout the entire region, which bothered two major groups of people.
Well, let's check out what this says. Look. Then Jesus called his disciples and told them, this is funny, actually.
Yeah, it is.
I feel sorry for these people.
He had compassion.
Yep.
Okay, there are no vendors. There's no food stores. There's no grocery stores. There are no hot plates. There's no Waffle House. There's no McDonald's. Okay,
No.
There's nothing. And these people are sitting there, and he's been teaching them all day. And he looks at his disciples and said, "Hey guys, come here a minute.
Look at these people. Look at
They're
them.
hungry, and they got nowhere to go. There's no food. I have compassion. I feel sorry for them.
They have been here with me for 3 days, and they have nothing to eat. I don't want to send them away hungry, or they will faint along the way." So something.
Hold up now. Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
They've been hanging out with him day and night for 3 days. They obviously have nothing else to eat, so they had food.
Yeah.
They started out with lunch.
Now remember
The
feeding of the 5,000. How that started, right?
Right.
Little Johnny had his little sack lunch, and
So the people had something to eat,
And
but
Je-
they've run out of food.
but if you think about it, think about that. Little Johnny comes to Jesus and says, "I don't have much. I have my lunch." And then guess
Five
what?
loaves, little pita breads, and a couple of little small tuna fishes.
Yep. And then guess what? Jesus just does that. And if you think about it, I think that boy got more than what he had.
Yeah, he
And when he
received
got-
more than he got,
Now-
than he gave.
Now, when he got home, his mom and dad says, "Well, Johnny, where'd you get all this food?" "Well, you sure did miss it."
So he takes 5 loaves and 2 fishes.
But this is oh, bless you.
That's just pollen. That's just pollen, which yellow down here
Oh,
in
no,
Alabama.
oh,
Right
no.
now. It's yellow in Alabama. So,
Anyway.
but they had food.
But this is a totally different story, though.
Yeah, they had food. It says they've been with Jesus. Said they've been with me for 3 days, and they have nothing left to eat. I feel sorry for them. They're going to be hungry. They're going to pass out.
Yep. And I love how specific he is. He says 3 days. And if you think, well, God wrote a book called Numbers.
Yeah,
So Numbers,
very specific.
specific, but it has significance too, I think.
Yeah, 3 days he was in the ground.
Mhm.
3 days, 3 days, 3 days. So it says the disciple said, "Well, where would you like to get enough food in the wilderness for such a huge crowd?" I think that they said that mockingly.
You think so?
Well, where exactly
Well-
would you like me to get enough food to feed all these people? We did this last time. But this time we ain't even got no 5 loaves and 2 fishes. Where are we going to get this food?
I see wherever you're going with that. Yep.
Okay,
True.
listen. Pastor comes up with an idea. He has a program of outreach. He wants to do something. He wants to make a difference. And he goes to the deacons. He says, this is going to cost this much money. And they would say, and where are we going to get that enough money to pay for that? Because I know them.
Don.
Okay.
Don will pay for it.
No, Don won't pay for it all. God will provide. But your faith has to be exceedingly strong to agree to do something that you're not sure you have funding for.
Yeah.
People in this day and age in our culture, in our country, will do that all day long to buy a new car. Yeah. Or to get a credit card and go buy all kinds of new clothes and things they want, or to go on a vacation. Yeah. They're happy to go in debt for that and hope they have enough to pay for it. But they won't do it at church because they're not sure God's going to bless them that much. What I just did is what Jesus might have done. And looked at them and shook his head and said, hey, are you that slow and dense? Jesus said,
good point.
How much bread do we have left? They said 7 loaves of bread and a few fish. We got a little bit left. Not much, Jesus. We ain't got enough for the front row. We ain't got enough for us. And Jesus is like, y'all slow.
I just did this last week.
So Jesus told all the people to sit down on the ground. All right, everybody, listen up. I know the teaching time's about over.
Can I say something real quick?
Yeah.
Let's say, okay, you're not a wrestler, right? But let's say...
I used to speak when I was young.
Okay, well, let's say that you wanted to wrestle The Rock, right? And The Rock beats you, right?
Absolutely, every time.
A week later, Don, he's hitting the gym. He's mad.
I'm going to go back and do it again.
I'm going to whoop him. But The Rock says, and then he just falls down. And then it's like, can you see it? Can you see?
Yeah. But this one, actually,
you haven't learned your lesson already. I fed all these people with just about the same amount of food that we already have today.
But Jesus does this, and he knows these people are listening to him because they hung out for 3 days. They're going to listen to everything he says. Says, hey, everybody pay attention. They all hush. Mm-hmm. I want you all to sit down. I know you're hungry. I know you're out of food. And teaching time is over.
Yeah.
You know, my preaching time, my telling you stuff is over. Okay? We're getting ready to call this a day. Okay? This revival's over.
Yeah.
But before you go, you're hungry. And so Jesus told all the people to sit down on the ground, and then he took the 7 loaves and the fishes. He thanked God. He did this in front of them, openly, right in front of them. And he prayed and thanked God for it. He broke it into pieces. He gave it to the disciples, who distributed the food to the crowd. And they all ate as much as they wanted. Afterwards, the disciples picked up 7 large baskets of leftover food. There were about 4,000 men who were fed that day, in addition to all the women and children. All right, let's look at the size of a family. Not in today, but in that day.
Yes.
These were farmers or fishermen, or they were laborers because they didn't have office jobs yet. They didn't have no computers, nobody answering the phones, no receptionists. They had large families, preferably boys. Why? Sorry, the girls were out there working also, but the girls were not allowed to go out into the field because they didn't disrespect their women by sending them out in the fields. Okay? Boys were preferred so they could work real hard. The girls were supposed to take care of the things at home. It's a culture. Don't get mad at their culture.
Yep.
So there were probably 1 wife and at least 3 children per man.
Yeah.
And probably 75% of them had a wife and children.
Yeah.
So let's do a little, let me get the calculator out. Ooh, we've been doing this all night. We got about 4,000. We're going to take away 25% that are singles. That leaves about 3,000. Each one of them has got a wife and 3 kids on average, times 4. So about 12,000 people. Plus the 1,000 that were single, so about 14,000 people to feed. Okay? That's a lot of food. That's a good sized stadium full of people to feed. And then they gathered up 7 large baskets of leftovers. Everybody ate till they couldn't eat no more. It was like the buffet.
Yep.
It's like going down to the biggest buffet you've ever been to, and you eat till you just can't eat no more, and it's still leftovers. Then Jesus sent the people home. I appreciate you being here. I've had a wonderful time teaching you. I hope you really gathered and understood what we've been saying to you for the last 3 days and what I've been teaching you. Now, I want you to go home and spread this good news. Don't take it home and hold on to it. Go and tell your neighbors that didn't come. Go tell your family that couldn't come here today for the last 3 days. Tell them what I've been teaching. Tell them all the things I've said. Spread this good news.
It's quite significant, isn't it?
Yeah, and then Jesus sent the people home, and he got into a boat and crossed over the region of Magadan. He went across the Sea of Galilee to a different place. He went to a different town because, well, they was probably tired. There weren't no cars, there were no taxis, no Ubers, no airplanes, no helicopters. They had to walk on their feet. There's a big point to be made there. Leather personnel carriers, that's what we call them in the Army. Okay. Your boots. In the Army, we called our boots our leather personnel carriers. You walked where you had, and you had to take care of your boots. You had to take care of your feet. You had to watch for blisters. They didn't have boots. They had sandals. A flat piece of leather with leather straps, holes along the sides, and leather straps that they tied this flat piece of leather, the sole, up with leather straps. And rocks and gravel and dirt would get up underneath between your foot and the leather and in between your toes. And you'd kick a rock and stub your toe, hurt your little toenail, cut the end of it. It's a lot of walking. Yeah. Hey, Jesus, there's a boat over here. Jesus is like, I know, we're going to ride. And so they got in, and they went across to the next town that he intended to go to. Very simple story, but so much in depth there. It's called faith. And it doesn't matter how many times we see it unfold before us, we still, as people, lack faith. Years and years, I guess it's been almost 30 years ago. I saw this lady not too long ago at the grocery store. There was a lady at our church that I was going to then. She had brain cancer. And on Monday morning, she was going to have surgery, and they were going to remove as much of this tumor as they could, but they knew it was too intertwined with the brain to take it all, to extend her life some, because she wanted to live a little longer, because she had a new grandchild, she had children, she wanted to see a little bit more. And on that Sunday night, the entire church came down, and she was in the middle, and they laid hands on her. I'm going to guess there was about 200 or so, best of my memory, maybe 250, and prayed for her, and prayed for this cancer to be gone. We got the call Monday afternoon because she went into surgery, and they did all the prep and all that stuff, and then they had to do a CT, take the x-rays, and do all the things to prepare the surgeons to see what changed and prepare to do the surgery, and it was gone. still around. She did not have the surgery. There was no brain tumor left. It was gone. How does that happen? It was gone.
Miracle.
It's a miracle. It happens. A couple of years later, we see somebody else with cancer. And what do? Well, it's been nice knowing them. That's cancer. They're going to die. No, we don't learn either. The disciples, these are men called by God. Jesus said, come follow me. I'll make you fishers of men. These folks he's feeding had been there for 3 days. They've been with him for months. Every single day they'd seen people healed of diseases that could not happen. And they saw 5,000 plus people being fed. And Jesus said, I need to feed these people too. And they're like, where are we going to get all that food? Come on, he's saying. I can see Jesus now just covering his head and shaking. Oh my gosh, will they ever learn? They did. They did finally learn.
Yeah.
After the Holy Spirit came to them in the upper room.
Yep. That's true.
Mark 8, 1 through 10 records the exact same event. Let's see how it changes. Because, see, Matthew wrote this down. Matthew was all into detail. Mark was more into the storytelling, I think. About this time, another large crowd had gathered. Now, right there it tells you this is not the same as the 5,000.
No.
This is a different event. Very similar, very close.
Totally different event.
Another large crowd had gathered, and the people ran out of food again. Okay, they ain't learned yet either. The event, I think Peter was kind of the head of the deacon board here, of the disciple, and he hadn't learned much about event planning yet either. Jesus called his disciples and told them, I feel sorry for these people. They've been here with me for 3 days, and they have nothing left to eat. Again, they had food, but they've outstayed their provision, and they've run out. If I send them home hungry, they'll faint along the way, for some of them have come a long distance. He knew they had a long way to walk home, and they didn't have nothing left to eat. I'm a type 1 diabetic. I've got an insulin pump. I have had the worst day today with low blood sugars. Changes in my blood sugar of 100 points within 30 minutes. Just drop. And for those out there that are type 1 diabetics, I believe if you have to eat something because your blood sugar's low, it ought to be something really good. I mean, if you got to eat some sugar, eat something that tastes good, something you like. I like gummies. Fruit gummies. I love fruit flavored gummies. And I carry bags of gummies. Got 2 bags in my pocket now because I've had this terrible day. He wanted to send these people home. They have a long way to go. And I want them to have something good, something that will sustain them. His disciples said, how are we supposed to find enough food to feed them out here in the wilderness? Jesus said, well, how much bread do you have? How much food have you got? And he said, 7 loaves. So Jesus, now this is for 13 people. They got 7 loaves. There's 12 disciples and Jesus. 7 loaves, that's about a half a loaf each. Pretty close.
Yeah.
There was enough to give them a belly full. Jesus told all the people to sit down on the ground, and he took the 7 loaves, thanked God for them. See, there's nothing about fish here this time, just bread. And broke them into pieces. And he gave them to the disciples, who distributed the bread to the crowd. Bread means food. It doesn't mean a loaf of bread. It probably was pita breads. There were fish there. There may have been a few other things. They're on the Sea of Galilee. There's going to be fish. The Sea of Galilee is full of fish.
Yep.
And bread was a normal thing for them to carry. A few small fish were found too, so Jesus also blessed these, told the disciples to distribute them. Again, it said they ate as much as they wanted, and afterward the disciples picked up 7 large baskets of leftover food. There were about 4,000 people in the crowd that day, and Jesus sent them home after they had eaten. Immediately after this, no wasted time, he got into a boat with his disciples and crossed over to the region of a different place, Dalmanutha, or something like that. I can't pronounce it. These are two different regions that are small places south of Capernaum, okay, along the Sea of Galilee. They have many little communities, and they're side by side. For us, right here, we have Coldwater, Oxford, Anniston, Jacksonville, but we also have other small communities that have little names. Smaller areas, little small things that have historic little names.
Well, really, Airport Road's kind of a community.
Yes, it is.
Think
So
about it.
they went across up the water because they was tired of walking. Jesus was a little tired of walking. He wanted to ride. So that's the story of the feeding of the 4,000. Again, about 12 to 13,000 people were fed with 7 loaves and some few fish that they found. Matthew says there was 2. I'm going to tell you what, Matthew was big on detail and counting. He was a tax collector. He counted stuff up. Matthew says there was 7 loaves and there was 2 fishes. Buddy, I'm going to tell you there was 7 loaves and 2 fishes. Mark wasn't that impressed with the number thing. He's impressed with the story of it. Yep. The stories are identical, except Matthew's big on numbers. But other than that, the same thing happened, and it happened. And I do not doubt it at all, and I do not understand how it could happen, because it's called a miracle, and miracles are not understandable by the human mind. It's something we should expect to happen. It's something we should long for to happen. Unfortunately, most people do everything they can to discount the miracle, to find a human cause so that they can say, well, it couldn't have been. It's too hard for me to believe it's Jesus, so I'm going to figure out that they misplaced the bread. Really? Okay. They miscounted. 13,000 pieces of bread. They miscounted 7 for 13 for 7. No.
Maybe they couldn't count the iodine.
No. He blessed the food. And folks, he will bless your life. And you take what he gives you, whatever it is. These disciples took what they were given, what they had. No matter how big or how small, they took what they had, like we are supposed to do. And they blessed it. They gave it to Jesus. He blessed it, and he increased it. How many fold was this? At least 2,000 fold. Too many Christians will take a verse out of the Bible. He'll bless it sometimes 2-fold, sometimes, or 10-fold, 20-fold, even up to 100-fold. And that's how limited they are. God blessed this food about 2,000-fold.
Yeah.
And if there had been 40,000 people, he would have done that too with the same amount.
Yeah.
Give back unto God what he has given to you, and be faithful and believe. Deep, you know in your knower, that part of you that just knows it. And somebody says, how do you know it? I know it in my knower. I can't explain it. I can't write it down. High jumper practices over and over and over, and then they set the bar a little higher.
Well, if you think about it.
And it's a world record, David, and he knows it.
Yeah.
He knows something. He either knows he is going to make it or he knows he can't.
Yeah.
And if he knows he can't, he can't. And he can't jump that high. But if he knows deep down his knower and he says, I can do that, then he's going to jump a little higher. He's going to make it.
That's true.
Jump a little higher. Take it another notch.
Don, do you believe that a cow can jump over the moon?
I believe if God said a cow could jump over the moon, it would jump over the moon, come back down, and wouldn't even have a problem being in outer space and no oxygen.
I'll tell you off camera. Okay, so, but really you're onto something. What brings this pencil down?
Gravity.
What is gravity?
Gravity is something that you cannot see, you cannot feel,
Now, can we,
but it is created by God Himself.
right, but can we fill this cup up with gravity and paint it blue?
No,
No, but, well, we know what it is, but we don't know what it is. We use it all the time. You know, again, something is pulling this pencil down. Now, how does gravity know where this pencil is? You know what I mean? That's pretty cool to think about.
God created this world.
Now, we know gravity exists because we know that in our knower.
Yeah. We know we're not going to come out of these seats and float up until we hit the ceiling.
Yep.
We know that. It's not going to happen. Mm-mm. What is wrong with us that we can't know that God says, go do this, give this much, and I will bless it and multiply it so it can do what I tell you to do? Why can't we just accept that and go do it? Because we listened to that same old serpent that said to Eve, did God say that you certainly would, you certainly won't die? You'll live forever. You'll be like Him. You'll have the knowledge of God. You won't have to ask Him anymore. You'll know it already. And if you eat that other fruit over there, you'll live forever like God. It's the same thing. I know that if I give my tithe to the church, that it's going to help pay some of the bills. Some of the salaries of the electric bill or the mortgage or whatever it may be. Buy some Sunday school materials, whatever the church uses it for. And I know it's this much money and that's what it's going to be. Let's say I give $500. Then I know, well, that's $500 worth of all the supplies and stuff. And as long as I know that, God can't multiply it. He can't, because I don't have faith that He's going to multiply it and use it for His glory.
But a question that I get sometimes about tithing is, if you tithe, let's say $500, $500 is a lot of money.
Yes, it
but
is.
Listen, their point is really good though. Well, David, aren't you making the church richer and you poorer? I said, well, you are 100% right there.
If you, as long as you accept that lie from Satan, you're right.
But he's talking about mega churches and stuff.
I know. Doesn't matter how big the church is, large or small.
Yeah.
This is between you and God. And if you will have faith and be obedient, God will tell you what your tithe is. In the Old Testament, it's 10% of your increase. Mm-hmm. All right, in our world today, in that world in that day, the increase was simple. They took the seed left over from last year, they planted it into the ground. What came up was the increase.
Keep talking, I need to get something.
Okay. With the animals, they put a male animal and a female animal together, and they had baby animals, and the baby animals are the increase. It's not, you don't have to give the mama and the daddy and the baby up. You give up a portion of the increase. What is your increase? Now, I'm in a very unique position. I am self-employed. I have my own business. But what I sell and receive in commission payments, when I sell something, I get a commission. Pretty good one sometimes. Sometimes not so great. what I receive in commission is not my increase. There are still costs associated with producing the thing I sold, so I got commission. Maybe a large, maybe small, depends on what you're selling, what you're creating, what you're doing. But your time, your energy, your costs to get that out to that person, taken away from the commission received or the payday you got, is the increase. Okay. David worked for an hourly rate, am I correct? Or salary rate? You're an hourly, right?
Hourly.
So David goes to work. He drives. How long take you to get to work? About 20 minutes? 15, 20 minutes? You have to pay car payment?
Yeah.
Do you have to have insurance on your car? Do you have to do maintenance on your car? Replace tires when they get... There are costs associated with him going to work. Lunch is not one of them. You're going to eat lunch or eat your meals regardless of whether you work or not. You're going to still eat, so meals don't count. Okay? This is what we've done in this country. I can tithe my increase. You don't get to tithe your increase. Breaks my heart. The government dictates that you give government the tithe, the first fruits, before you ever receive it.
Yeah.
You do your labor, they calculate that up, that's your gross. Then government goes in right off the bat and takes the first fruit of your labor, your increase. They take that away, then they take away whatever withholdings you have for like insurance or this or that, and you get the leftovers. How do you tithe your first fruit when the government has already decided that your first fruit goes to them? Government has declared itself your God.
Yeah.
They surely have. And there's at least in the United States of America, unless you're self-employed, there's absolutely nothing you can do about that.
True.
Okay? It's hard. So do you tithe against the gross or the net? Neither. You tithe according to your increase minus the expense of producing that increase. That's the increase. So that gross amount minus what you put into it to make it happen. If you were a farmer, it would be the tilling and the weeding and the chemicals or whatever you got to fertilize, you got to put on the seed that you put in, the hours of labor to make sure it's weed free and it grows well, and you water it, and then you harvest your crop and you sell your crop. Your crop minus your costs is your increase. And your first fruits should go to God, not to government. Government is not my God. Government is a necessary evil that I have little choice in. For my chosen field of work, I get my increase, my commission. I take off what it costs me to get that. And honestly, I use the government rate.
Yeah.
I go in and I know what it costs me because, well, I have to know. Because sometimes I go and do stuff I probably shouldn't do and I actually don't make an increase. I actually lose money.
And doesn't it say,
I get paid, but I lose money. Okay, that's all right.
it doesn't say in the Bible where if you don't tithe, there's a, well, you're not cursed. Well, I guess you are kind of cursed, but
Your increase.
there's a hole in your bag
Yes.
or a hole in your pocketbook.
Where the moth comes and eats.
Yeah.
Where the rust comes and destroys the metal.
Now, hold on a second.
Okay.
While we're on that, Jason Mayfield, a friend of mine, did a good job with this book, and he points out a lot of interesting points. Like, if you tithe, God will bless you.
Yes, you will.
Did you know that God can't bless disobedience?
That's right. God blesses obedience. And it is not, Jesus himself proved it's not the amount, it's the heart. Because have we done the widow with the 2 pence yet?
Not yet.
Not out there yet, are we? There's a little lady, we're going to talk about her not too distant future, who had 2 pennies left. 2 little copper coins, that's all she had. For us, that's 2 pennies. All she had left. In this day and age, it wouldn't buy anything. In that day and age, it would buy something. About a meal's worth. She could get a little bit of bread. She took her 2 pennies and she said, I owe this to my God who has kept me for all these years. I've never gone hungry and died from starvation. And I don't believe she had enough faith saying, I don't believe I am now, even though. So I'm going to take my 2 little pennies and drop them in here. Out of faith. Mm-hmm. Jesus said she'd given more than all the rich people had given of their profit. Because she gave it all. It's an act of obedience, not an act of accounting.
Yeah.
Okay? There's an accountant's level and there's an obedience level, and they do not correspond. But God will bless it. He said, try me and see if I'm not good. And if you will try me, I will open the windows of heaven that you cannot contain. All the blessings come your way.
Now, you can't go all smart aleck and say, okay, I'll try you and take all your money out of the bank and,
obedience, not investment.
Hold on. You're right, but, something about this book that you read, and if you're in the middle of God's will, and even if you're not in the middle of God's will, God will take care of you.
Yes.
Somehow, some way.
Faith. As long as you have faith and you obey God, God will take care of you. It's not always financial. It may be taking away something that would eat up your financial.
Let me ask you this.
Like disease.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Tithe.
Yeah.
If you tithe your time to God, do you think that He'd give it back?
I think that He
Maybe.
will bless you. I don't know if He gives you time back. Years ago, I was at Harvest Church of God. Not a bad church. Not at all. There was a couple there who came to that church, and they had been homeless, living in a tent. They had nothing. They didn't believe in anything. They came into that church. They accepted Jesus Christ. They had nothing to give. They had no income, no job, no place to live. The church had a little apartment above a garage. Said, you can live here. There's no rent. There's no utilities. You need a place to stay. Here you can stay. He tithed his time and his energy. He cleaned. He worked the parking lots. He planted plants. He mowed grass. He became a full-time custodian for the church in exchange for this apartment. Utilities. God poured out the windows of heaven on them that you just cannot believe. They were so happy because what they had was true joy.
Yeah.
And they had no need of food. They had no need of anything else because they had everything they needed. and they worked hard for Christ, to not just keep the building up. That's a facility. That's a campus.
Yeah.
It's not the church. It's the church building. It's the church property owned by the people of the church who have given to build the building and stuff, the campus. And they gave. They tithed what they had. And they were truly blessed. If that's all you've got, give it to God. Watch out, because he will pour out blessings on you. I have seen with my eyes, and it took me decades to figure this out. A tire blows out, and you get a check in the mail that was mailed 2 or 3 or 4 days ago that you didn't expect, and it's enough to cover that tire, or that refrigerator that went out, whatever it may be, that unexpected expense. This is God testing you. He's proving to you that he can supply, because that check was just enough to cover it when he sent it days before. Don't tell me he doesn't provide. That illness or injury that would keep you from working, that you just can't tolerate missed work. And he keeps that illness from hitting you. It keeps you healthy so you can keep working. That's a blessing. And you can't see it because it never happened. It didn't happen because he loved you, because he blessed you, poured out the windows of heaven. Blessings upon you. You got to understand, it's not always in the visible or the physical. Sometimes it's just in joy. It's just in reuniting and rekindling a relationship that is soured and that you need back. Both parties need it back. And that is rekindled and it's healed, and you're blessed by that.
Yep.
Would $100 check be worth that relationship with your child or a family member or an old friend? Would you pay that much? Well, you would if you took them out to dinner and said, to pay for the dinner so you could have a conversation about it. You'd pay $100 for that dinner if they were a good friend or good family member and somebody you loved. Give it to God. You don't have to take them to dinner. He'll send them on over to your house or send you to theirs. Yeah. And they'll say, I love you. Come in. I'm so sorry. Quit looking at the physical. Quit looking at the natural. Start looking at the God in everything. And watch it blow up all over you before you understand what's happening. With that, I think we should close for tonight.
That's it. That's all I
Appreciate y'all joining us. David, I know I harass you. I love you. I hope you're feeling better. Keep your sickness and your germs to yourself. We'll see you when you're better, brother. Thank y'all.
See ya.